Hey guys, it's the Combat Sports Guy here,
Yeah.
back with another episode of championship rounds. We got a lot on the table today. We're talking about a lot of great fights that happened this past weekend. Let's get right into it. Let's start with topic one.
Let's
Um,
dive into it.
let's dive into topic one. Topic one, we got what's next for Isaac Cruz after his loss to Jose Rayo Valenzuela. Um, this is an interesting one. Um, once we get the picture up, but honestly, like in person, I thought that Isaac Cruz was winning the fight, but the issue is that when you're in person, you have like a lot of you have a lot of crowd um, distractions and things of that nature.
Yeah.
So I could see
Um,
how Rayo outboxed Isaac Cruz, but I still think that Isaac did a decent job of just using footwork and stuff to try to close off the ring. But again, like I thought that Rayo was going to make it difficult for him, which is what happened. But I never expected this to end up with Isak losing. So I think this was a big upset for the night as a whole.
I
What's
think it
next for
was,
him? I would say that the
yeah.
only thing that he really should be looking for is really a rematch. I don't really see any other option for him besides the rematch or maybe trying to go after that. Well, he really can't go after anything else, to be honest with you. Only that rematch, in my opinion. I don't know what do you think about that, Jeremy?
Yeah, let me start off by saying this. I also picked Cruz winning this fight, and I thought it was going to be by a KO. I was dead wrong. He was, according to judges, the way the judges saw it, he was getting outboxed. Um, Again, yeah, like you said, James, being there in person, one, your view is a little it might be a little on the rougher side because obviously you're far away from the ring. You can't really see what punches are and aren't making an impact. Um, and then towards like the eighth round, the Vargas brothers and Keyshawn Davis were going at it too. So that kind of like, everybody was standing up and watching that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, I think at this point, Isaac Cruz, his best bet is just to go for this rematch against Rayo.
Yeah.
But obviously now that Rayo has the belt, Rayo can kind of, do a little hit and run strategy here to
Mm-hmm.
kind of retain. So he has that going for him. And honestly, I mean, it won't be very popular. I think that's his best like strategy, just to go for a hit and run because. But then again, Cruz, he's got to figure out something about that defense though, because it was clear throughout the entire fight that there's still no defense. I do understand that his uh his uh his style only allows for like forwardness and little to no defense. But I mean, there's got to be something. There's got to be maybe Cruz just has to be smarter with his punches. But it just seemed like he was just walking him down, but he wasn't really landing anything. Or if he was like landing, or it looked like he was landing, it was touching Rayo's gloves, if anything.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously that didn't fly too well with the judges, and obviously that's why we have a new champion at 140. So yeah, I think his best bet is to go for the rematch. He shouldn't be looking towards, you know, moving back down to 135. He shouldn't be looking to move up either. I think he needs to stay at 140 and figure things out before making any other moves. But yeah, there's not a doubt in my mind though that we'll see him come back. We'll see him stronger than ever. We'll see. I'm hoping we see a different Isaac Cruz coming back, but you know, I think it's time for him to kind of change up his game plan a little.
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking in my head like what the problem could be with Isak, and honestly, it's so with his style, it is tough because it is very much like a forward first style, and I think that because of his height and just the way he's built, it's kind of difficult for him to get a lot of side to side, like like natural waist movement, like other big fighters have done in the past. Um, so I think it is definitely tough for him in the sense that he does rely a lot on that peekaboo style. I would say that the big thing that I was noticing is that while people do believe that the smaller fighter can't really utilize a great jab, When Mike Tyson would kind of fight like taller opponents, he really likes to start off his combinations with like utilizing a decent jab or like a timed jab. So at least I would say incorporating just the jab in general more, even though Valenzuela was using that Philly shell defense, which a lot of people seem to have problems landing the jab on. Definitely throwing a jab will at least give Cruz distance to start like his combinations and stuff. Which when I'm looking at the compu box right now, which kind of like I expected, he only threw like 6 jabs the whole fight. He was really so when somebody only throws like less than 10 jabs in a fight, or he threw a lot of jabs, he just didn't really land much. I guess the real problem here just lies in just him. It might just be a problem with head hunting and maybe not trying to start from the body or just like the solar plexus or even jabbing towards the chest, I guess. And he had a lot of moments where he was just he has that style where he just power punches a lot. I would say that this was still a relatively close fight in the sense that when you're there, when you're watching it, he seemed to kind of have a hold of things for a few like 4-5 rounds. But honestly, it's just tough because the other thing is too is that for a power puncher like Cruz, when somebody like Valenzuela is able to take those punches, there's not really much else that he has to offer in the sense that he couldn't really knock out Valenzuela. He rocked him. I think I heard like in the 9th or 8th round, Valenzuela was rocked. I remember seeing that, but it wasn't enough to really finish the job. So I would say against the Valenzuela, he really has to find a way to like you said, like cut off the ring better in the sense that he does have the tendency to stalk his opponents a lot rather than, cutting the ring down and trying to really time the jab a lot better. He really just throws away the use of the jab a lot. Despite him being small, I think that he could just find a better use of that jab in a rematch with Valenzuela. But I mean, kudos to Valenzuela because honestly, nobody expected him to win this fight.
He fought a fantastic fight. Yeah, most definitely.
So, majority of the crowd didn't like it, but I think that as a judge, they honestly did a good job. The judges, a lot of times, judges fail to do good work, but this was not one of those times. I think in this situation,
Cruz is just a more popular fighter, but it was crazy though being there in person, and the decision was announced, and then you couldn't even hear both fighters post-fight interview because of how loud the boos were raining down. So, but obviously, Cruz is a more popular fighter. But no, we think that the right man won this one for sure.
Yeah. So again, in terms of the question, I would just say there's nothing else for Isaac Cruz to look for besides a rematch. He's there. Nobody else is gonna really want to fight him unless he rematches Rayo and he gets that title again. So there's no point in just saying that it was a bad decision because he could honestly do better in the next rematch. I would say it's a very close fight if it happens again. So I don't think it's really a problem. They have a fantastic fight if they fight again. But yeah, that's what I think about what Isaac Cruz's next decision should be after this loss he took by Rayo. Yeah. So talking a little bit about staying on the topic of the same event that we're talking about, many fans are divided between Terence Crawford versus Israel Madrimov as to who they thought won. So I guess the question here is just who we thought won the fight in general. I don't really see any controversy. I think that the problem really lied in just how active this fight was. This was an extremely inactive fight. I think it was definitely played towards Madrimov's pace in the sense that, he was like really, bouncing, on his toes. He was really like, back and forth, very, he was just trying to feint Crawford and kind of tired Crawford out with the feints and then start working. But the issue with that is that Crawford never really fell for anything. And the times that he did, he lost those rounds. But realistically, I don't think that Crawford lost more than, I would say, 3-4 rounds at most. So, I don't know. I didn't see a crazy judge decision. I thought it was pretty normal. Crawford did a good job against an opponent that's just difficult to deal with. But yeah, no, I would say that Crawford did a decent job. I mean, it's gonna let the fans down because it really wasn't that much of an exciting fight to watch. I bet that on TV it was even worse than it was in person, but it really wasn't a fun fight to watch. Crawford just had to spend most of it just kind of on the back foot trying to figure out Madrimov, and then Madrimov was just kind of consistently just back and forth, feint, and it was kind of rough to watch. I think that at least Madrimov could have set things up better with a jab or something, but he was honestly just afraid to get countered, and he was just this is the best result that Madrimov could have hoped for, to be quite honest with you, in this fight.
Yeah. I mean, let me just say that I was very shocked at how low output this fight was. I was really expecting a high output, very even matchup. Not that this wasn't an even matchup; it was a very even matchup. But I was expecting a lot more volume from both fighters. But it definitely was anything but that. But I think this is one of those fights where, I mean, you can't really hate on it because I feel that both know the other guy's ability and what they could do should one person make a mistake.
Right.
And I feel like that's what we saw a lot of here, where it was they almost didn't want to throw because of what could happen in the blink of an eye. So I mean, I get it. It definitely didn't make for an entertaining fight. But I know a lot of people thought that Israel Madrimov won that one, but truthfully, I just think Terence Crawford's jab and his his controlling of the fight later on in starting in the third round, I think that's what did it for him. I think that was the difference maker. But yeah, both guys, I mean, it was a cool idea. It was a cool fight, and now Terence Crawford is now a champion at 154. So now, I mean, that's shaking up a lot of things. And 154 is almost looking at some kind of revival right now, which is very exciting to see, I believe. So, yeah, I mean, honestly, I'm not mad at the decision. I'm not mad at the event. I thought Terence Crawford did what needed to be done, and unfortunately, it wasn't the most entertaining way of doing it, but hey, he did it at the end of the day, and I mean, I guess that's really all that matters. That's all you can really ask for. And I think it'll lead to more exciting things in the future for not just him, but the 154 division. Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely see a lot of good fights down the line, which, funny enough, we're going to be talking about next. But yeah, no, I think it's just I think it was just a growing pains type of fight. A lot of great fighters have off nights, especially when they're moving up in weight and they have an opponent that's just not going to give them an easy fight. So yeah, I mean, there's no disagreement between us on this one. To be honest with you guys,
Yeah, no, it's yeah, we both saw it basically the same
I think this
way.
is very clean cut. I think Terence won. I think people that just don't believe that he won, it's probably mostly just due to the fact that it wasn't a very tremendous, performance.
Just opinion. A lot of people don't like Terence Crawford, truthfully. And I feel like a lot of people's opinions were definitely affecting the scoring of this fight. That's what I think.
Yeah, I mean, that could definitely be a factor, just because, I mean, people just don't like Terence. I think that of his performances, this has probably been one of the worst. But again, he's moving up in weight, and this is not just like a regular opponent. I think that they were both very afraid of each other's counters, in the sense that Israel did his job of letting Crawford know, hey, I have power behind these, herky jerky movements. So Terence didn't really want to mess with that to a degree. And then as soon as Israel would, cut, he would cut the distance, he would get countered with 5-6 combination shots. And it's I don't think he wanted to deal with that either. So just due to the slightly better output by Terence won this fight. Had Israel probably put on the work at some point in this fight, he would have probably made a better chance of him winning. But it never
absolutely
felt that way.
Actually, but yeah, one more question, James. I'm just curious on your opinion about this. But do you think Terence Crawford's age really showed here? Obviously, a lot of people say he's like an older fighter.
I think that Terence Crawford looked really fresh. really good. Like I think that it was just like a question of Madrimov giving him like an awkward look in the sense that whenever he came into the distance that Crawford wanted him to get at, he threw it probably equally or almost the same, like as sharp as he did when he was at 147 fighting Errol Spence. Like it was very sharp, good technique. It's I think that it was just that he was moving up and he that Madrimov hits a little bit harder than a lot of the other guys he's faced and stuff. So he didn't really want to deal with that. And he was up. I think he knew he was up in the fight, so he really didn't need to do much else besides just outland Madrimov, which is exactly what he did.
Yeah.
I think it was just like a weird opponent. I don't think that his age is showing, but definitely he has to be careful as he moves up because, Fundora is very tall, very awkward. So that's going to just be an awkward fight as well. But it's a fight that he could definitely win. He could definitely break down Sebastian if he,
Yeah.
find the right shot. So I don't know. I don't think it's age, but eventually, for sure, age will definitely creep up on him, especially as he's moving up. If he ever tries to move back down, then you'll see fights that are going to be a lot more difficult for him.
Yeah. Okay.
So I don't think it was an age thing this fight, but it was definitely just a weird opponent. Next fight, it just depends like how much time it takes for him to get another fight. Because if they wait another year, I mean that's not the best option in my opinion. I think they need to get him more active. Yeah, but staying on the topic of Terrence versus Israel, Terrence Crawford states that he wants to fight Sebastian Fundora for the WBC and WBO world titles if Fundora doesn't fight Errol Spence. Is Crawford versus Fundora the fight to make over Spence versus Fundora? Yeah, it definitely is. I think that Crawford, in my opinion, I think Crawford took care of business with Spence. Me and Jeremy, we both never thought that would happen. I thought that Spence was going to do a lot better. I thought Spence was probably going to break down Crawford, but Crawford showed literally why Madrimov didn't want to close the distance with him the whole night because Crawford just knows how to counter. He knows how to counter with great combinations. He has a very original style of boxing in the sense that he could fit in with the guys of the 80s and stuff and how clean and sharp his punches are and just how I think that he really fights in his actual weight class, and that helps him a lot. Now that he's moving up, we'll probably start seeing some problems start to arise, but he still looks sharp, and I think that it's a better fight because why not? He wants to. If Spence wants to have a rematch with Crawford or Spence wants to have a fight with Fundora, Spence has to earn the title shot at that weight class, I think.
Okay.
I don't know. What's your opinion on it, Jeremy?
Yeah. Okay. Maybe a hot take here, but I mean, I think the fight between Errol Spence and Terrence Crawford, I think that is the best we'll ever see Terrence Crawford. I think that's the very peak of Terrence Crawford right there. However, I do still think that he beats Fundora, even at this age, even all things considered. I really do think that he still beats Fundora. Again, Fundora, he was getting outboxed by Tim Tszyu leading up to that cut. That was another one that we were there in person and we could see it. That one we could see really relatively well.
Yeah.
We weren't sitting like ringside or nothing like that, but we were basically looking down and like we could tell, that was a fight for sure where we could tell who was actually landing and who wasn't. And Fundora is don't get me wrong, Fundora is an absolute. He's a fantastic fighter.
Yeah.
However, I feel that I think Terrence Crawford could show him levels, but I think this will also be evenly matched up to where a younger fighter and an older fighter almost look like they've been fighting for the same amount of years. In the sense that like when someone is relatively inexperienced, you can it'll show, and I think they can basically make each other look inexperienced.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel that Fundora is a damn champion, but I still think Tim Tszyu was giving him that work up until that cut. So this will definitely be an awkward one for sure, but this is absolutely the fight to make in in 154 because I mean Errol Spence hasn't done anything to deserve a title shot, let alone for 2 world titles, and 2 of the biggest titles in boxing, WBO and WBC. I think that's crazy that Errol Spence would be getting a shot at that. But if that fight happens, let me just say this outright: Fundora is going to beat Spence, but I think Terrence Crawford should absolutely gun for that the unification of 154 with Fundora because I mean it makes the most sense. I think Terrence Crawford. I don't know if he's still with PBC, but we know Fundora's promoter, Mr. Samson. I'm gonna put the guy from Samson Boxing. I forget his last name.
Mm-hmm.
The guy from Samson Boxing obviously works close with PBC.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I definitely think it's a better fight to make than Errol Spence versus Sebastian Fundora. Why not? Unification would be more fun than just a guy getting an undeserved title shot just because it'll make a couple extra bucks. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I think. I think Spence. I really don't even know if Spence will come back to boxing just because of like how I think it's just how long he's been gone for. It just seems like he's been gone. It's only been a year, but it just feels like an eternity of how long he's been gone, and it just in general, I don't know really what's left for him to do. But after he got beaten like that by Crawford, but at the same time, he definitely deserves benefit of the doubt in the sense that he was a champion for a reason. He had really good fights with different fighters, but I think that it is stylistically very difficult for him to fight with Fundora. So I can see why you're saying Fundora will win. If Fundora fights Crawford, I think that it's also gonna be a difficult fight, but it's gonna just depend on what Fundora decides to do because Fundora, he honestly was probably gonna lose the fight against Tim had Tim not gotten in the cut.
Yeah,
but
I think so too. Really
what he learned from the Israel Madrimov fight though is that if he could be patient enough and he could give like Crawford just a lot of looks that he's not used to, that he could give Crawford a really tough fight. But I think that just a mix of him not being as patient and also just how awkward it is to fight at this weight class just because of how tall he is and his style. I think that Terrence is gonna beat he's gonna beat Fundora if that fight even happens because later on today we're gonna be talking about Vergil Ortiz, which I think is probably much more of a likely fight to happen before a Fundora fight. But yeah, no, I think it's definitely a fight that I would rather see Crawford versus Fundora at this point than Spence versus Fundora, only because Spence didn't really earn a shot at that title. I guess he was a champ and they gave him that champion's advantage, but I don't know. I think that I would rather just see the Crawford versus Fundora fight just because Crawford already earned that shot at being that Canelo type. Oh, I want to unify this weight class. So yeah, no, I don't really see much else with this besides wanting to see Crawford versus Fundora. But yeah, I don't know do you think that any other thoughts really on this topic of Crawford versus Fundora over the Spence?
I wanted to ask. I mean, do you? Because I think Terrence Crawford's best days are behind him. But I just want to know: do you think the same? Do you think differently?
In terms of Terrence Crawford's best days being behind him, that's tough because I think you're right. I think so. Like Teddy Atlas one time was talking about Oscar De La Hoya doesn't really have like a quintessential that fight that defines him or whatever. I don't think that's true, but what I do find true in that statement, because I think Oscar had his definitive fight like 2 times, but with Crawford, I would say that his like you said, like his peak very much is Spence in the sense that they were both of the guys people wanted to watch fight. Spence gave Crawford exactly what Crawford wanted in the sense that he was going to come forward and he didn't really, break Crawford down or start off with a jab or really start off with some sort of slowly kind of break down and cut off that ring. He just kind of decided to just really bring that fight to Crawford. And Crawford, if you bring the fight to Crawford, especially with that left-hand stance that Errol has and just Crawford's ability to switch stance and his IQ, it was not going to be a good night for Errol, and that's what happened. I think that Crawford is still as good as he was when he fought Errol right now, but the only issue is that he's no longer at 147.
Yeah.
He's only getting older. So I would say that, yeah, I mean, I would agree with that. I think that there's too many factors that that are there that can, that can kind of taint what he had beforehand. Also, I think the competition is getting higher in the sense that, to be quite honest with you, I think Fundora already is probably, like, if he fights Fundora, he's already one of the best competitors that he's been against aside of Errol Spence, in the sense that I can't really name a lot of guys that Crawford fought before Errol Spence that were like, they're all world-class athletes and boxers, don't get me wrong, but they're not like, I don't know, they're not anything to write home about, in the sense that they are the elite of that weight class. But I just feel like at that point in time, the elite of that weight class were just not, they were not on Crawford's level, and they were not going to give him any confusing looks. They were either smaller than him, they were either, just as tall as him, but like a little bit older, like Kell
Right.
Brooks, or Amir
Sean
Khan,
Porter.
or just people like that. Sean Porter. So I just don't, I haven't seen crazy competition for Crawford at, that level. He unified the belts though, with Errol. So that fight kind of just propelled him. Which, I mean, it makes sense because Errol was like, the boogeyman of that division at that point in time. But I don't know. I would say that I do. Long story short, I would agree with what you're saying because there's too many factors involved now, and he's fighting up weight classes, and it's like, Vergil, in my opinion, is probably going to give him the best fight he's ever had. And then Fundora is already just one of the best competitors he's fought, and that honestly, it's like, it's just going to be tougher for him at 154, in my opinion. And then if he which I think he could unify, if he goes up, it's going to just get, things are just going to get way more difficult for him. So I don't know. I think that he's just trying to stay in boxing, have legacy fights, and then eventually he's trying to find that payday that he thinks he deserves, which, I mean, he probably does. It's kind of been due for a while. So I would say that you're right. I think his peak is not, I think he peaked with the Errol Spence fight just because that was his weight class and there was nothing left for him to prove there. But now that he's at 154, things just get harder.
Right. Exactly.
So,
Yeah. Younger talent, way younger talent.
the weight class, yeah. But I mean, yeah, like sticking somewhat to the Los Angeles Riyadh season card as a whole. Reportedly, the card only, I mean, it lost $10 million. And the question posed here is, should Turki Al-Sheikh be worried about this loss? Also, adding certain attractions like the performance from Eminem, is that really necessary in a boxing card? I don't know. Well, let's start this off. We got the picture up here with Turki himself. What do you think, Jeremy? What do you think? Do you think that what do you think about the losses? What do you think about him being, should he be worried? What do you think about that?
Tell you the truth, I mean, I wrote this question
Mm-hmm.
knowing basically how I'd answered it and saying, no, I don't think he should be worried. This is freaking Saudi Arabia we're talking about, man. These guys got money to burn, and their $110 million loss isn't exactly something that I don't think they're too worried about. I really don't think they would be worried about that. But I feel that, when you start having when sports are becoming more spectacle than actual sports, that's when I think we're starting to have a problem. And that's what I think they were trying to do here, which, including like a performance by Eminem. Was it cool? Hell yeah. Was it necessary? Hell no. We did not need that. I feel that I could care less if there's a musical performance by somebody during right before a boxing match. And I feel that, it's the concept of it being a spectacle. It's cool, but me personally, I don't like it because I feel that it takes away from what the sport actually is. So I don't think they'll be worried at all. But I think it's time for them to realize, hey, maybe people don't want to see more show. Maybe people just want to watch actual boxing. And I think that's something that they need to, reevaluate when their approach, with their approach, because their approach is definitely more show. I mean, we saw it even with the public workouts. They had the Santa Monica Pier, and they had 3 fights at the Santa Monica Pier. So this card was built around, hey, let's show off we can do, but it wasn't in the boxing aspect. It was more of the entertainment aspect, how we can kind of bring those two entities, like those two universes together. But I just think that it really takes away from the event that you're trying to sell, which is a boxing match, not a concert. And that's what I feel it was more of.
Yeah, no, I get I get what you're saying for sure. Like with like overall, like trying to balance out like, okay, is this entertainment? Is this boxing? I think it's tough. Like I think when I'm considering like what Saudi's trying to do, I mean, like first off, like when it comes to like our reaction in person, I was like, I mean, I know you were excited. I know I was excited. I know a lot of people were excited to see, a concert,
Yeah.
at the event. I mean, it helps, right? But
Yeah.
I think it's definitely true. Like it's important to consider whether it adds to the spectacle. I think that it could. I think the issue is that if Saudi Arabia does that with every single event, unfortunately, the audience, my opinion at first of like, this whole thing that's been started since, honestly, I feel like all of this started with COVID when Mike Tyson did the Roy Jones thing. I feel like that kicked off a whole generation of, like entertainment meets boxing.
Mm.
But I think that in order to make that work, you really have to have like a more set schedule, which I think Saudi's trying to get to, in the sense that like okay, the WWE, they have very very neutral, just like what it is type events. Like they have Raw,
Right.
SmackDown, like very like regular events. And then towards the end of the year, they do WrestleMania. It's like the biggest event of the year. Everybody's
Right.
hyped for it. I think that the best way to do an event like this is if it was built up to a degree, and there was more of a schedule in place. Like the UFC, they have little fight nights, so people respect, the hardcore fans respect the fight nights, and then they respect
Right.
the good pay-per-views,
Yeah,
and
it,
then
it separates in a way, right? Like
yeah,
the fan bases.
and then
Right.
eventually now it's building to the Sphere. So now the Sphere becomes a big event because it's something that it's not very like it's not always done. But like if you look at the track record for Saudi Arabia, unfortunately, like at the beginning of everything, I thought, okay, nowadays like I mean realistically right now, like we have a crazy amount of audience right now because the reality of it is how the attention span of people is not like we don't have a huge attention span. So I thought like if you just keep like stimulating our senses, it's gonna be like wow, like we're gonna want to stay and be engaged. But in reality, actually just get bored people. So like I was watching something and I heard some people like in the comment section of different boxing videos talking about how even the fights themselves, like they were all great fights, but some people were just tired of seeing great fights to a degree. Like they were just like by the time they got to Crawford versus Madrimov, people just kind of
It was
they
almost exhausting.
it felt exhausting. Yeah, they
Yeah.
were exhausted by
Yeah.
all these things that happened. Like Big Baby got he got upsetted.
Yeah.
Andy got the draw. Pitbull he got what he got. It gets these large events do get exhausting. Having Eminem perform, maybe it added a spectacle, maybe it didn't. What I will definitely say is that as a live event, I think it was a very successful live event. It was a good event. People
Right.
enjoyed it. They had, they were trying to do like the whole like, the t-shirt shooter where they're shooting t-shirts into the
Oh
crowd.
yeah,
I think that what they're going for is really great. I just think that they should have a more set schedule, do Golden Boy events, do Matchroom events, do top ranked events, and then do a big event at the end of the year. And then you could have a musical performance and get, tire out the fans with all these
right.
great
So
fights.
that people expect that kind of thing, right?
Do it at the end of the year. Don't do it all the time. They did it with, Tyson Fury versus Ngannou, the 5v5. I think people are starting to get tired somehow of having great boxing events. So I would say that don't spoil them too much. I think just having at the end of the year, do a WrestleMania type thing. I think that's the best of both worlds. I think that what Saudi's trying to do is a great thing. It's just that in order to create revenue, they gotta just tease the fans a little bit more leading up to this huge event. They can't just throw it at them because then people just won't know what to do. And also, not to, I think originally this was supposed to be a Crawford versus Canelo event, and it probably just fell through. But also, pay-per-views are built on superstars. Unfortunately, to be quite honest with you, this was not a superstar event. It was for the hardcore boxing fans, live event oriented. If you want to sell a big pay-per-view, it has to have Canelo. It has to have a Tank. It has to. The pay-per-views are built on the superstars. Pay-per-views have done well when it was De La Hoya versus Trinidad did great numbers. Nobody knows who fought on the undercard. It's the truth. It's just like
it was all name. It was all the names.
Name, and it's all the publicity of the fight, because already as is, a fight lasts almost 60 minutes. It's almost like watching half of a movie. So people are really just expecting that main event. They don't really care much for the undercard. But yeah, no, I think that it was a great night of fights. It's just that it's overstimulating. I think people just got overstimulated by how good everything was.
Yeah. I agree. I think that was a fantastic breakdown of that, honestly. I really did like that.
And then adding and then we talked about adding the attraction. I think it'd be cool, but just not every single event. People do get just exhausted by just being overstimulated. But getting into another overstimulating event, and not in the bad way. I think this is actually a great event, just that in the sense that that it's good paper. It's going to be a really good main event, and it's going to be one of those fights for the hardcore fans of boxing and just hardcore fans of striking in general. I think that this is I agree that this will probably be the fight of the year. It's meant to be that. These guys are both combined record of almost 95%, almost 97% knockout ratio. That's pretty insane. They both have very tough styles. They both break down their opponents. There's no way that this fight cannot turn into some sort of war at some point. And I think the fans are just hoping for, 10 to 12 rounds of just, them trying to break down each other and just have a war with each other. I think that's what fans have been wanting. This is what I mean. Boxing is really made up by its main events. This main event, this card might not, obviously sell nearly as much as, this other card that, had so many, great fights and stuff, but it might be remembered more just because of how much of a war these two could have.
Yeah.
So the main event really, it makes or breaks the event itself. So I think this is being built up to be a great event. I hope it is. It looks like it will be. I don't know. What do you think about this event, Jeremy? What do you think is going to go down in this war that we're expecting? Is it going to be completely one-sided, or what do you think is going to happen?
Well, I mean, let me start off by saying this. I think my favorite aspect about the event is just like how much people think this is going to be a war, which is great because then that's going to fuel these fighters to probably want to have a war more, So I love this. I'm super excited for this one. Whenever Vergil Ortiz fights, he's got that big fight feel to him. He's a big name and everybody knows he's a killer. So, but Serhii Bohachuk, on the other hand, he's also a killer. So with that being said, I'm expecting a fairly even matchup here. I don't think this will be if this thing goes all the way to decision, I wouldn't be shocked because of how tough both these guys are. But at the same time, these guys also throw nothing but bombs. So I'm expecting, just some kind of crazy facial injuries by the time this thing's over, So I'm super excited. I definitely have Vergil Ortiz winning this one, though. Vergil Ortiz, he is just relentless in the ring. He's just so fun to watch. Power is insane considering his size, and now he's at 154. He's looking fantastic at 154. And should he win, this opens up. It opens up a can of worms, but it also opens up a bunch of opportunity in the 154-pound division. 154 is basically the new 147. Like a lot of guys from 147 are now moving up to 154. So
you could call 154 the new 135-pound division, to be honest with you, too, because
technically, yeah.
All the guys left from 135, and 140 is all up in the air now that everybody lost their titles. Nobody's active. Right. So 154 is kind of where it's at now. It seems like Turkey Al-Sheikh has a lot of plans for 154, so it seems like it's going to be the pretty important weight class of boxing for a while. And I expect the war too. I don't really I think that realistically, if you're a betting man and you need to know exactly, okay, who's going to win this fight, let's be honest. I think that Vergil Ortiz is the much stronger pick. However, if you're, if you really like to risk a lot and you think that there could be an upset, this is one of those type of fights where it could kind of go either way. I think that Vergil has a lot more. I think that he has a little more oomph in each of his punches for sure. And if Bohachuk just leaves himself, there to be in the the firefight with him, I think that Vergil could definitely get a knockout just because Vergil's punches just they have a lot more umph into them than Bohachuk's does. Bohachuk, I saw him fight Mendoza. He couldn't finish Mendoza. So I kind of thought that he really needs time to break an opponent down, which Vergil he does need, but he can really just finish a fight off of a body shot or even a mixture of a combination. So I think just based off of that, I think that Vergil's probably going to be the most likely winner of this fight, but it could honestly go either way. I really would not want to put my money near this, aside of maybe just going for Vergil winning the fight as a whole.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
We definitely got Ortiz over here for sure.
Yeah.
I
think Vergil's going to win.
Yeah. Killer, relentless, super fun fight. Highly recommend people tune into this one tomorrow because, I mean, definitely not one to miss for sure.
So in our next topic, again, sticking to Turkey Al-Sheikh, and now talking a little bit about him and Canelo. They've been going back and forth on Twitter with Turkey saying that Canelo only takes easy fights and prices himself out. Canelo responding with a laughing emoji. Does Canelo need Riyadh season, or will he be fine without them? This is actually a really interesting topic. I know that we were going to get to this at some point. I think that at the moment, Canelo really doesn't need a Riyadh season. However, if Canelo if he really wants to bring that last spectacle that I think that his career really deserves, he has to do it through Riyadh season. Honestly, these two parties need each other in the sense that if Riyadh season wants to see a real good profit, and Canelo wants to, really leave that lasting legacy in people's minds, I think they both need each other to a degree, and I think that the fight fans would love to see it. Unfortunately, the only way in which an event like this occurs is if Canelo fights Benavidez, to be honest with you, because I think that's the fight that really brings in the huge numbers, it brings in the drama, it brings in that huge show, and there's really no doubt that a fight like that's going to be explosive because it's just like the Tank versus Ryan fight. Everybody knew Ryan was going to just throw left hooks the whole day, and everybody knew that, Tank was just looking for that counter. So with a fight like this, everybody knows that, Benavidez has to walk down Canelo, and Canelo has to figure out a way to be the Canelo that he's been for so many years one last time against, a fighter that, that caliber like Benavidez. So I would say really that these guys both meet each other. I think that right now, as it stands, they don't. I think that Canelo could continue to do a few events as he's been doing, but eventually, all roads are going to lead to Riyadh season for Canelo, and the same for Riyadh season in the sense that Benavidez most likely he's either going to clean out 175 or he's going to get he's going to get not exposed, but he might take a loss because, as we've seen with all these other fighters moving up, it's not that easy to move up. But if he does, close those rows on Canelo, it's going to be tough for Canelo not to fight Benavidez. And then same goes for Crawford. I mean, if Crawford could keep moving up and trying to, catch up to Canelo at 168, that might happen. But I don't know. I think that to some degree, at some point, they definitely need each other. I mean, will he be fine without them? Yeah. I mean, I see this next Berlanga fight. It might not do great, but it might sell close to what he did with a few fights before, like maybe the Rocky Fielding fight or something like that, which Canelo's still left with like $50-70 million that he gets in his pocket. Not that the promoters, not that anybody's going to make money off of the Berlanga fight. I don't know if PBC most likely will probably take a loss on that fight just because they're really going to hope that the hardcore boxing fans show out and show up to this fight, which I think they definitely will, but it's going to be really hard when they're competing against a UFC event. Again, it's kind of tough, though, because UFC is targeting people that are going to be willing to pay $5,000 to sit in the Sphere. Canelo is targeting people that are willing to pay, reasonably expensive but still ideal prices for a boxing event. So maybe they're thinking, they're going to do well with they could do well with the live audience, but honestly, the pay-per-views, it's going to be tough. It probably will do maybe close. I mean, maybe a little bit less than what he did with Plant, maybe a lot less than what he did with Munguia. It'll be a decent, just normal Canelo pay-per-view, but I don't know, Jeremy. What do you see happening here? I think that, this is it's all getting very competitive, honestly. I think Turkey is starting to, Al Sheikh is starting to see just how competitive and how boxing really brings you into that form of wanting to really get into kind of verbal scrap with people, I guess you could call it, like what Eddie's been doing with Crawford. It's kind of the same deal.
Yeah, no. I'll start off by saying this. I like how you're like thinking like short term and long term. I was more only thinking short term when I was writing this question. I was more thinking only like, oh, what happens now? So my answer for short term, does Canelo need Riyadh season? No, I don't think he does. He's nowhere near needing Riyadh season. He's Canelo. He's gonna sell. Long term, I still don't think he needs them, and I'll tell you why. I feel that when when Canelo fights, and this is gonna sound like crazy glazing right now, but when Canelo fights, I feel that it's not just a fight; it's almost an experience. When I feel, or like at least for me, I'm not even Mexican, and I can tell you that my family still gathers around to watch Canelo fight, just because. I mean, that really is like something that the face of boxing does. Whatever Canelo says, like goes.
I mean,
Whatever he's,
it was like Floyd, it was like De La Hoya.
Exactly. So I think Canelo says jump and the Saudis say how high. Like I just think that he just has that kind of control and that leeway over boxing right now to where that he's never going to need them. Sure, they might be offering him a ridiculous amount of money and more that he'll ever see, but if he chooses to take the route that Riyadh season and Saudi Arabia want him to take, he can't do what he's doing now, which is basically if he basically sells himself to Saudi Arabia for more money, he's going to have to take fights that, to Canelo is probably going to, to him, he probably thinks might ruin his legacy, or they're going to have him face only the toughest. Even though he's already basically cleaned out 168 minus Benavidez. But if he does what he's doing now, not only can he make still a ridiculous amount of money, but he can say, oh, I want this guy. I want to fight this guy. I want to fight this guy next. Maybe I'll move up. Maybe I'll stay here. He can do that. So he has more freedom as of right now, and I think he would rather pick that freedom over versus what Saudi Arabia is willing to offer him, which I think is perfectly fair. So I don't think he needs them. I think he's still gonna do fantastic in pay-per-view wise. I think he's gonna I think it's gonna go only up from here for him, truthfully, up until the point where he calls it quits. And that's basically my take on it. I just think that he's just so different in the sense that he can market, like he's marketed, but he doesn't even have to try. He doesn't have to do all this extra BS. He doesn't have to shove his opponents in a weigh-in, or he doesn't have to go on the mic and try to get into their heads, same like what a Conor McGregor, like maybe like a Jake Paul would do. He doesn't have to do all that. He just has to be himself, and people will tune in, which is why I don't think he needs Saudi Arabia. He could do the same with Saudi Arabia, but he doesn't have the freedom that he has right now. And that's what I think. And that's why I think he just doesn't need them at all for the rest of his career, for however long it goes for.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's definitely, it's gonna for sure have to do with like, I think what they negotiate, in the sense that like Canelo probably, if Canelo will get paid a good amount of money, and then if he's not really stingy with the upfront money, and he kind of just says like, okay, like I'll take a percentage. I mean, this is me talking, who knows? Like, I think that he's also viewing that, Saudi, their events are not selling that well pay-per-view wise. I was looking somewhere that, that they sold like maybe 125,000. I don't know how accurate that is, but I heard on report by somebody that just went in and looked at the data and how much people were interacting with the event and all that. So I think he's seeing those numbers and he's like, I don't really, he doesn't see himself being able to get that much of a percentage of the pay-per-views. But in my opinion, if they come together to make a Canelo Alvarez event, I think that will cement him and, as just that will be the largest boxing event probably of all time. And he would be a part of that and he would main event that. I think that in his future, in his near, in close, near future, because I don't know how much longer he can possibly do this. I think that he definitely could need them. I mean, legacy-wise, does he need it? Not really. I think he's playing it smart. In my, I look at it, he should fight Benavidez because it's his mandatory. But there's a lot of things that should have happened. I mean, there's a lot of fighters that should have fought that never got to fight. There's a lot of fighters that should have gotten a rematch that never got a rematch. There's a lot of fights that should have gone another way. But in the sport of boxing, it's a lot more strategic than it is in MMA. So it shows in the sense that, Canelo finds himself, I think, in that Floyd effect where there was a point in time where Floyd could really fight anybody and people would just tune in and he would just make about 600,000 pay-per-view buys just being himself because, people from all across, just people from all across the board wanted to see him either lose or they just wanted to see what he would do in the ring because they want to have like excitement. Like, it's like fighters – when people are not watching, the Super Bowl or people are not watching the NBA Finals, they want something exciting, exhilarating that's happening on the weekend, and then a fight is always there. So I think that Canelo is that next guy for sure. And I think after Floyd did a little bit of work, trying to get his name out, I think Canelo speaks more than he used to. So I think by him doing that, he really built a better brand for himself in the sense that he speaks more English, he talks a little bit more trash than he used to. It really, in my opinion, started off from the Plant fight and maybe a little bit before that. As soon as he started doing that, he played it smart in the sense that he just needs to get guys or people that will just do the talking for him. So, I mean, Oscar last fight, did a little bit of talk. I mean, Oscar knows that he's going to get paid too, so that's why he wants to stir something up. And I think Canelo, he's happy to oblige because he just, he wants to stand on business. So they stirred stuff up, and then here he doesn't have to do any work. Berlanga is going to do all the talking for him, just like Berlanga is going to walk into any counters that he has the night of. So it's like it's just the way it is. Like Berlanga's gonna make a lot of money. Don't get me wrong.
Absolutely, he's definitely going to collect a check right there. Man, I'm jealous.
And then when the KO happens, it's going to become a huge highlight for Canelo as a whole for the event, just like the Plant fight was. So I think, I don't know. I mean, he'd really like in the near future, he doesn't need them. I think that in the long term, he does just to cement having a huge event. And Riyadh season also, I think they both need each other. I think both of their roads will lead to each other. But who knows? I mean, Canelo, I don't know how much longer he has in the sport. If he retires in 2 to 3 years, maybe he just doesn't ever do any business with Riyadh season. And he's really fine with that. He doesn't need to make any more money. At that point, it's just to cement, a huge event that they can have somewhere. And honestly, Riyadh season and him could get together and make an event in anywhere, really, like any stadium around the world, and it would be huge. But they need to find the right opponent and all that. So I mean we disagree on the idea of it, but at the same time we agree on a lot of it. Like, Canelo is just playing chess, with everybody.
Yeah,
so
definitely is being smart.
Playing it smart. For our next topic, we got the IBF has now ordered Bakram Mutrazayev. Sorry,
take your time on that one. It's a lot.
versus Tim Tszyu. Should Tim Tszyu capture a world title? What does this mean for the 154-pound division? I mean, the IBF always does like the smaller fights that globally people probably care about.
They love Australia, apparently, man. I mean, Loma and Kambosos, like Tim Tszyu and I'm gonna butcher his name if I don't see it in front of my screen, but
Bakram.
Thank you. Yeah, but like that IBF loves Australia apparently, but I'm not.
Australia, they show out. I'm not gonna lie, they
show
out.
They do. They do put. They definitely can put on some dope events. So I mean, there's no taking that away from them. But I would love to see Tim Tszyu get an IBF title because again, this is gonna stir up freaking 154. Then we
Yeah,
can get Vergil versus Vergil Ortiz versus Tim Tszyu. I mean, man, I'm clamoring for that fight. I want to see that happen. But yeah, tell me
yeah.
what you think, James. I don't know how you feel about this one. Obviously, this
I mean,
isn't a U.S. fight either. This isn't a U.S. market, so a lot of
yeah,
people are probably going to be like, "Who?" But which
yeah,
is
yeah.
understandable. It's not a U.S. market, so. But yeah,
I mean,
go ahead, James.
uh, yeah, no, I agree. I mean, I agree. It's really, it's just a Australian, I think, marketed event. And I mean, Eastern Bloc, but a lot of the Eastern Bloc, I mean, they have great fighters. I don't know how active the fans are. They probably are active, but it's just like a smaller group of, just not as much buying power, I would say, as Australia, in the sense that Australia, they're definitely holding this event in an Australian, either stadium or, large venue, because, they just show up for their fighters. And Tim Tszyu is highly recognized there. It's a championship fight, and Tim Tszyu's right back in where he honestly does belong, because he had the championship for a long time, and he kind of got screwed over by that cut. And honestly, when you're there live, it's different than when you're watching on TV. When you're watching on TV, you hope that the fight gets stopped, because you did pay for the pay-per-view, but you already had a good amount of fights. You don't need the rest. When you're there live, you want the fights to keep going. You want to see more of a show. We saw a great show in the sense that we were just full anxiety was filling us all as we watched this guy lose his championship to a terrible cut that just worsened and worsened and worsened. And he was honestly up in the rounds. Had they stopped the fight, he probably would have kept his championship. But he's a real fighter and a warrior. And unfortunately, sometimes if you don't play this, sport like a chess match, you end up getting screwed over. Sometimes he got screwed over by the cut. But he deserves this IBF championship fight for sure, to capture a world title again. He deserves, honestly, to still be a champion, but he lost the fight to Fandora. So I think this is good payback for him against a pretty tough opponent, Akram. So I mean, I don't know, it's decent event. I'll probably tune into it, but it's not something that piques my interest necessarily. Like, I'm more hyped for other fights. Vergil's fighting Bohachuk this weekend. I mean, tomorrow, literally. I'm more hyped for other events that are in the future than this fight. But this is a good, we have to have these fights just to keep boxing as an active sport like it is. So I like it. I think it's good. He deserves it. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm not exactly, you know, I'm not exactly lining up to, or just like setting a schedule to watch this fight. I'm not exactly doing that, but what I do like is just the prospect of Tim Tszyu becoming a champion again, because of what that means for the 154-pound division. That means basically we could get an undisputed at 154. Should everything go according to some dreams, So obviously, like if Terrence Crawford and Fandora unify, and then Tim Tszyu gets the IBF, and then we have the winner of those two become undisputed. I would love to see that, but then you get Vergil Ortiz into the mix.
I mean,
And Vergil Ortiz
honestly,
could fight the champ, whoever unifies, or he could fight Tim Tszyu for that IBF, and then Vergil Ortiz can fight the winner of that one. So it's just a prospect of that that really has me kind of looking forward to hopefully this happening. Obviously, right now the only thing that's happened is that the IBF just ordered it. But the IBF just ordered it. But yeah, I mean, I want to see it happen because of what can happen after, rather than the actual fight itself.
I definitely, yeah, I agree. Um, yeah, I definitely agree for sure. I mean, we pretty much, like, yeah, we see eye to eye on that. I mean, it's not going to be the most exciting fight, but again, it is definitely a well-deserved title shot. Speaking of, just title shots and people, just champions in general, Teofimo is eyeing a move to 147. Does he need to prove himself at 140, or has he done enough? I'm honestly just cool with him moving up to 147. I mean, he's done his business at 140. He could try to be the savior of 140 and unify this division that's just like all over the place. But Haney's gonna make it tough to want to fight with him, because it doesn't seem like he wants to fight. Isaac Cruz just lost his championship. He could fight Ryo. That's a fun, interesting fight. I think definitely he might stay at 140 because there's more things to do with him. in the sense that Riyadh season is probably going to get themselves involved with him. He was at the event. He seems like he's game to fight with Riyadh season. I think they'll definitely maybe do an event with him, and they'll have him fight, a Rayo, or like try to unify a little bit more at 140. But if he wants to move up, I have no problem in the sense that I thought he beat the man that was the original guy that unified, the whole division, and then everything else after was just the belts, and the sanctioning bodies kind of just taking away the championships from him because he just couldn't take on like 50 mandatories at once. So I don't know. I think he already kind of proved himself at 140. He took care of business with Ortiz. He took care of business with all these different guys. I don't know. I think he's good. He didn't have like, sometimes he doesn't have like the craziest of performances or whatever, but that's just the way it is. I mean, it's like you're not always going to perform, like amazingly in every single fight. It's like you kind of cement your legacy with those few good performances throughout the career. So I think, when he fought Taylor, that was one of those performances. So I don't know. I mean, what do you think? I think he's good. He could try to fix the division, but I'm okay with him moving up. I don't know. What do you see with Teofimo?
Yeah, no, honestly, I gotta say I disagree with that. To be honest, I think he shouldn't move up. I think he needs to do more at 140. Yeah, I know he beat Josh Taylor. But I think that there's just so many fights that were left on the table at 140 for him that I feel that it's almost not fair. We have to think after Josh Taylor, he fought. Who did he fight? Oh, he fought Jermaine Ortiz. Put on a lackluster performance, in my opinion. Fought Steve Claggett. Not exactly who people had in mind who he should fight. So I think he needs to do more at 140 for me to be like, oh, okay, he's done enough. So, I mean, yeah, he's had 2 fights, but I mean, Jermaine Ortiz was a good opponent, but Jermaine Ortiz damn near exposed Teofimo. And keep in mind, this was a fight that everybody said Teofimo should win relatively easy. So this is what I mean when I say I think I need him to do a little more at 140 for me to really be like, oh, okay, he really, he talked his shit, he proved his point. But yeah, I think I don't know. I just think his last performances were just, it wasn't anything to write home about. And I think that's what we know Teofimo as somebody who you definitely want to be talking about because of his just his style and his personality. But none of that has really shown, I feel like, lately, or at least in his tenure at 140.
I could see like the 140 run is lackluster. I mean, for me, when he moved up and he beat Josh Taylor, I thought that I honestly thought that Josh Taylor was always going to get exposed at some point as just being this boxer that's very tricky. And Teofimo did that. He outboxed him, had a great, really good display of just outboxing a top elite fighter. And I thought that he pretty much, it's like if somebody from 140 right now, it's like if it's or 135, let's say it's like it's really like if somebody from he came from a lower weight class and then he pretty much beat an undisputed guy. So I guess what I would be getting from is maybe like 160. You take a guy from 160, he moves up, he beats Canelo. It's not exactly like that because I think Josh Taylor is not on a Canelo level, but I thought that he beat the guy that beat everybody. And then it's not really like, I get it though, because there's like there's a lot of loose ends at 140 because Pato is a champion now. Isaac Cruz lost his belt. Everybody's losing their belts. Everybody's getting exposed. Haney got exposed by Ryan. I mean, he was just looking right now for what's best for Teofimo. I think when Ryan won at that moment, Teofimo was like, all right, I'm going to jump on this Ryan fight because I know I can outbox him. Is a big name. I want to stay at 140. Once Ryan got, suspended and pretty much, taken care of in the sense of like all these different things, now he doesn't see anything at 140 for himself because Haney's not going to want to fight, and Haney has a championship at 140. Pato is not. Nobody knows who Pato is besides people from Australia.
He is a
He
small name.
honestly, he barely won against Subriel. He could expose Teofimo. Teofimo is not always so very consistent. But and then there's Rayo beating Isaac Cruz. I mean, that's an interesting fight, but I think it's gonna be up. Like if he's gonna do work with Riyadh season, then I think he'll stay at 140. He'll do a fight with like Rayo or something like that. But I think he's eyeballing 147 because there's nobody there. I think that Crawford left, Spence left. Now he just wants to kind of pick up the, what's left there and just be like he could practically become a 3 division champion before Crawford does. I mean, on paper, technically not because they took away one of those championships from Josh Taylor, which I don't know what the deal is with that. But Teofimo already in my eyes is a 2 division champion. He didn't have a great display against Ortiz. I mean, I keep in mind Ortiz almost beat Loma. And Loma's still very, very good. Ortiz is just a tough mandatory competitor that these guys end up having. But you're right, though. Claggett was not a great fight. But aside of that, I think that he just he doesn't really need to fight Pato. He doesn't need to fight Rayo that much. It's not what people are clamoring for. But if he chooses to do so, then I mean, it'll cement his legacy as being, a real guy. But the thing is that he could also go to 147, pick up championships at 147, and then people will know him as like the 3 division champ, just like Crawford.
Cement that even more, probably. Yeah,
it's because I don't know. It's like people respect. I would say that in general, on paper, people respect like defending your titles a bunch less than people that like keep moving up and keep getting those divisions. So like I don't know. I think for him, he wants something like that. But I think you are right. Like the 140-pound division, there's so many loose ends that there needs to be somebody to clean it all up because I thought that all these it looked good for a second and then
it looked solid. Yeah, it looked like none of these guys were going to lose their stuff. Yeah,
everybody got upsetted. Devin still has his title, but let's be honest. I mean, he lost emphatically to Ryan.
Yeah.
Isaac Cruz got outboxed by Rayo, which I mean, in person we almost thought Isaac won, but he really did get outboxed. Super Matias, he got outboxed by Pato, so it's like all these guys lost their titles. It's almost like 140-pound. They do need somebody to come in and start, really unifying. But I don't know. I mean, Teofimo, he doesn't really need to be that guy if he doesn't want to. But if he does, then it makes sense, though, too, because this division's up in the air right now.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. I get where you're coming from. This is killing me.
I mean,
it's
140 is rough.
Oh, okay. Yeah, 140 is kind of all over the place right now. But I mean, it's just that I don't know. It feels like when everybody got upset, and now things are quiet. There's no talks about anybody defending or no movement.
That's true.
In terms of
140 did go quiet.
Yeah, it's very up in the air right now, and I mean, months ago, you and I said 140 was probably the most exciting division in boxing, but now it's clear that it's not. It's anything but.
Out. Everybody got everybody just got outboxed. That's the thing about boxing.
Yeah.
You got to be so precise. So many champions, so many divisions. I think the other tough part about for him is that he kind of has to wait around. Like, it's either like they make action happen now or they don't because Isaac wants to rematch with Rayo. Subriel wants to rematch with Pato. Devin Haney literally probably wants to rematch with Ryan, which he's going to wait like a year for. So I don't know what that's about. But I don't know. It's a tough division for him to stay at. But I get it, though. Like, he hasn't had the greatest performances at 140. I could see it. I don't know. We'll see how it plays out. It's definitely complicated. Any of the 140-pound divisions are very complicated because also I don't know what's going on at 147. I know that, there are 2 big stars just left. So it's like that seems to be opened up now. I can try to check who the champions are, but I doubt that anybody is.
I don't think there's besides Jaron Ennis holding the IBF. There's not really anybody at 147. Or at least off the top of my head. I mean, Jaron Ennis is the first name that comes to mind whenever I think of like a 147-pound champion.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Oh, and at 140, by the way, I think it says here that the says the WBC is vacant. So I guess that I don't know. I guess Devin Haney is.
That's right. Because Mario Barrios is technically holding the WBC belt right now.
Okay, yeah. So I mean,
Yeah. So
yeah.
But
And
as
then
far as like WBO and WBA, I think those are basically vacant as of right now.
Ismael Barroso is like that one guy that deserves. He's deserved a chance at this title forever. I mean, he fought against
Right.
Rolly, got upsetted, in a not great decision by Rolly, but
Yeah.
yeah, no, I don't know. We'll see what I guess happens with 140. I'm looking at 147. They still have Terrence Crawford holding 2 of those belts, but he's obviously gone. Stanionis is still there, so he's probably going to try to move up. I don't know. I mean, 147 is relatively open, and 140. I'm saying 140 is vacant. So I don't know. It's they're both up in the air. It's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. Another thing that's going to be interesting to see how it plays out is our prospect watch of the week. We did this I think last week. We talked about Andy Cruz.
Yeah, we barely talked about Andy Cruz, but this time we actually have time to talk about like our prospects.
That's true. We barely spoke about Andy Cruz. I think we brought him up. When did we bring him up? We brought him up in conversation
because he was fighting on the Riyadh season card.
On the Riyadh season card. That was a tough one. Yeah, I think we had some questions coming in too when we were talking about it. Yeah, so I mean this is early. This is even earlier than Andy Cruz because Andy Cruz has already proven himself. I think he had 1 gold. He already has 1 gold medals. He's already, what do you call it? Fought a few pro fights. I think that a very early prospect watch would be Marcos Verde. I think that obviously he didn't win gold, but the big thing that I find with Marco is that he's been the closest Mexican boxer and I think almost all of the Olympic history to get to gold for Mexico's Olympic team, which is crazy to think about. I would just say that I think that he has a good shot in the pros. I don't know. I think that he has already a professional style. He just needs to get the professional coaching, get used to the cardio of the pros. But he definitely already has the style, and he's tried to use it in the amateurs. The amateur system is just a whole nother system. It's definitely tough to do. Oh my gosh, bro! At 6:13, we had young Rams. We had young Rams in, bro. That's crazy. That's actually nuts. But yeah, no, I think we'll just end it off on that. I think Marco Verde, he has a great chance. Huh? Your take.
Come on, man.
I'm sorry. Go. You gotta go because I got taken aback that what do you call it? Young Grams sent a message in, so I appreciate that. I don't know if he's still here, but I appreciate that. Go ahead, Jeremy. Take it away. And
I was just gonna say, I was talking about this before, like the stream started. But basically, Marco Verde, his style.
Let's go.
His style, basically, it's more set up for the pros. I mean, I was watching 2 of his fights last night, and I mean, his work to the body is just crazy. Yeah. His hooks are strong.
Yeah.
So I'm just thinking, should he turn pro? I would love to see him with like a promoter like Top Rank, because I feel that they can build him up properly, build some kind of like Mexico themed cards around him and whatnot. Should he get to that level of becoming a star, obviously. So I'm very excited for what the future holds for him, and I think his style is definitely going to be very popular with the fans, and I think his I think he'll do well. He'll go far. So that's our prospect watch. Hopefully, one day. Andy Cruz and Marco Verde. That's the guys.
Andy Cruz and Marco Verde. I think
2 prospects that we believe are going to go far.
Yeah, again, like you hit it around the dot. Stylistically, he's very good. Lefty. It's always tough when you're a lefty in boxing because right-handed fighters are not used to fighting lefties that much, and lefties always have that upper hand. But yeah, no, I mean, I totally agree with your statement on it. I think he could do great. Young Grams is here. That's crazy. That is nuts. I appreciate the follow, Young Grams. I know that you followed us from the beginning.
Appreciate you.
today was not a crazy active stream, but I appreciate that Young Grams is here to keep it active.
We got
I don't know.
something.
I don't know if he has any questions before we end this off.
We got life in the
But
stream.
if he does, he could send them through real quick. But again, appreciate that. But yeah, man, I honestly agree with you, Jeremy. Marcos Verde has a great prospect chance. Oh man, y'all ended. Yeah, bro, we've been on for a bit, bro. We just been talking about different topics, bro. We've been on for a bit. Yeah, I mean, you could. I mean, next week we'll be streaming again, honestly, and then
Come back at 5.
I hope. Huh?
Come back at 5. 5.
Come back at come back at 5. Yeah. 5 p.m. on Fridays. We always be here just chopping it up about different combat sports stuff. I don't know. I mean, you know, everybody into that. So we just decided to put something together more about it. But yeah, bro, I get you being in the comments talking to us. Yeah, I mean, yeah, but we unfortunately got to end it in a bit. If you have any last questions, we'll answer them. But yeah, everybody, it's been good. It's been good, hasn't it, Jeremy?
No, it was good. I liked this week in terms of topics. I don't care if it was active or not. I liked what we had this week. So
yeah,
that's that.
We appreciate it. Appreciate it to Young Grams that's still here. It's the combat sports guy. It's Jeremy. We're out, guys.